Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Are you recording?
14 minutes in, because we were recording a pre-show, which we didn't realize.
Yes.
I have a bigger iPhone than you, though. So because you have the small iPhone and I have the right one. Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you.
As well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to our minds. Long story short, we were recording the previous episode and we're recording this episode on the same day. And we just continued talking. And that wasn't supposed to be part of the show, but we're actually, you know what, let's just continue talking about workflows and simplifying things on iOS with, just create a simple system. So this this is related to last episode, but also the previous few episodes, this whole saga of simplifying stuff. I have a bunch of other repeating tasks in Nozbe, which used to have a checklist, and I figured out like some of them are steps that have to be done on the computer, right, or on the iPad. So I did the work to link, with Markdown and URL schemes, to link the checklist elements to Safari or to other apps, so that for example, there's a checklist item that says. I don't know, like for the thing I mentioned, like download bank confirmations. I press it and it opens the bank website, and not just the login form, but with the hash for history page. So it will open the login page, but after I log in, it will put me in the right spot. So it's just
nice.
A lot of little improvements, and actually, so. When I tried doing that, I was annoyed by the fact that it will open those things in Safari view, which makes sense for browsing when you have some link in a comment. But when you have a checklist like that, you want to have Nozbe on the side and those things to be opened in the Safari app.
Yes. So
I built a hack.
Uh-huh.
When you have the Markdown link and you have HTTP, if you change it to SHTTP or SHTTPS instead of HTTPS, it will open Safari instead of Safari View. Just S, like Safari, like SHTTP. Just put an S before the link, and it's just a magic hack that, 3 people know about, you, Rafa, and me, but I don't know, it might be useful for Nozbe nerds. I want to make my Magic Spreadsheet work well on an iPhone.
Yeah.
So this is iPhone consultations. And I can't figure out quite how to do it. I figure out some things, how to make the layout of the numbers file smaller, and just kind of hide the rows of past few months, so that I don't have to scroll, because then I remember scroll position, like bullshit like that. But it's just it's still a pain in the butt to do it on the iPhone. And I really wanted to work on the iPhone because I have a reminder in the productive app.
Yes.
To update my Magic spreadsheet. And it's just it's a perfect thing. It doesn't take much typing or anything. It's just tricky UI situation. It's supposed to catch me in between moments, when I just have a moment on my phone, maybe I'm in a bus or whatever, and it's just I notice the reminder, and wherever I am, I want to be able to do it on the iPhone. Otherwise, I won't do it at all that day, because I'll forget by the time I'm at a computer, or I might not be at a computer for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted this to work on the iPhone, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the same format. Maybe I would have the stuff I need to have, but just have some sort of workflow, whatever, put the data, so that it's easy to paste into number. I don't know. I don't care how it looks. I just want to be able to put the data from the iPhone, and I don't know how to do it. So that's the pitch.
So for me, the fact that I already made the spreadsheet smaller and I just collect less data, the spreadsheet doesn't look that bad on my iPhone anymore. So it's pretty usable. When I do my weekly review after like 4 or 5 months, 4 or 5 weeks of data, I just move this data to a different sheet, to the 2017 archive. This way, I don't have to scroll. I don't have the scroll problem anymore. So I see the next 4 or 5 weeks, on one go. I have a bigger iPhone than you though, so because you have the small iPhone and I have the right one. And but what I do, for example, you can use the hack that I do for my journaling, because for my journaling, all I do is I launch a workflow that asks me a series of questions. And I just answer these questions. So the thing would be to create a workflow that formats the questions and the answers in the right way.
I got it. So you started saying it, like formats the right questions, but I actually checked it, and you can paste tab separated values into numbers on iOS, and it will like put them in the right fields.
Exactly.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yes.
So if it asks me right questions,
you format them correctly into a tab separated answers. I mean, one big answer, and then you even copy it to clipboard.
You put it to clipboard,
and then you paste
and you
it
open
there.
numbers.
Yes.
Maybe you can even
maybe you can even paste it as a new row in a number spreadsheet.
Probably not directly, but maybe you can make a URL scheme that opens the right document. Because like when I change it, I always exit the document because weird stuff happens if I don't do it. Like I had a situation where, I had the document opened on multiple devices, and I changed something on one device and the data got lost. It had a bad sync. And I've been using numbers just on my Mac for 7 years, and it never happened before. So, when I make some changes to the thing, I just like go back so that I make sure it's saved and synced, and I don't do it. This is perfect. All right. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
No, but this is funny because like you led me to the right answer that you were going to say, but like the moment you said the right words, I just switched off and it all just formed in my head. It's like, I got it.
Exactly. So you see, I am a good mentor after all.
Yeah, you are. Oh man, this is going to be so good. Like all those workflows, and there's one last paper thing I have to get rid of, but we'll get to that some other time, or this time maybe. I don't know. Maybe that is a show. I don't know. Maybe we already started and we didn't even realize.
Yeah. In the pre-show or show or whatever thing that happened, we covered two things. So the fact that I'm just going to ditch another app because I can use the Files app on iOS 11 and the iCloud Drive iCloud Drive app on iOS 10 to have my my special folder with PDFs that I want to have offline, that I want to be able to read. I've been needing this because and what I discovered during blah 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 speaking about this, I discovered that I can annotate the PDFs very well using native controls and the no lag Apple Pencil, which is fantastic, and it syncs directly to the iCloud Drive, and it appears magically on my Mac, so it's really good. We talked about this, and we talked about your problem of your solution for inputting data on the iPhone to the Magic Spreadsheet, which we talked about in one of the past shows, right?
Yeah, and there was also this tiny pro tip for how to make checklists in Nozbe that open
exactly
apps in Safari app instead of Safari View. Though, just FYI, this is going to be part of 3.6, so mere mortals can't use it yet, but we can, and for everyone else, late September.
Yeah, but if you want to be on the test flight for Nozbe, go to test.nozbe.com. You can get the 3.6 and live in the future. Yes. And anyway, pro tip again, if you're using iOS 11 on your device, please sign up for our test flight because you should be using the 3.6 early version. I mean, I'm actually uploading it all the time. I mean, I'm after your advice, because things break on iOS 11. I am using the latest version of Nozbe all the time because it has to be like that.
Yeah, there's some things that are broken on iOS 11 and 3.5. Like if you open Time Picker, it just breaks.
Exactly.
For some reason.
It freezes.
Like, it's like just some really weird bug in iOS that's just worked around in 3.6. There's Siri, like in 3.6 beta, it's not finished yet, but it kind of works. You can add tasks to Nozbe via Siri, which is cool. Like finally, we wanted that for years and we couldn't do it.
Finally.
The file picker, I think, works with the new things. There were some changes there.
And of course, drag and drop works, but it worked out of the box anyway.
Right. Yeah,
and I did a video on both Siri and drag and drop, and we're gonna link to this in the show notes.
Yeah, the drag and drop is not perfect. Like you can't really drag anything out of Nozbe, but you can drop files into Nozbe tasks to just upload them. So that works well. There's still some weird issues with layout on that are not present in the App Store version and that are in test flight. Hopefully, I'll figure them out tomorrow.
Okay. So speaking of simplifications and things and workflows, we just talked about the fact that you can have like a series of questions in Workflow app, and this way, when you have these answers, you can format them in the right way and paste them in your Magic Spreadsheet. So this is what I do for my journal. We talked about journaling in the past. We'll link to these episodes in the show notes. And we'll also link to my workflows for journaling because I have special workflows for journaling. This way, I answer questions that I want to answer. This way, journaling is not kind of boring for me because I just answer questions. And when I answer these questions in workflow, they format the journal entry. And they put the journal entry they append the text file. They add to the text file of my journal. I have my journal is my text file in a Dropbox folder. So this is how I journal, and I have additional workflow that if I want to type more or write more or say more, then I can just launch the additional workflow, which is just add to journal, and I can just add whatever I want to journal. This way I can edit the thing, and if I want to just write in journal longer than that, I just open the journal thing in editorial app on my iPad and I type there. So this way I can journal shortly with answering these questions. I can journal shortly direct from the workflow, or I can journal in a longer way just by editing the text file directly with editorial app. And on top of that, I just added a new workflow, which is journal from the watch. And I can tap the workflow app on my Apple Watch and then choose the journal on the watch workflow. And then I can say things and then answer the questions by saying them. And sometimes it gets transcribed properly. Usually it doesn't. And then it adds it to the journal and there's the whole mess. But I think it's pretty cool when you talk to your wrist and journal to your wrist anyway.
Yeah, it's only cool if you show it to geeks that are very understanding of the fact that it's completely broken.
Exactly. But the good thing is that, as we talked about taking notes on the when you read a book or listen to a book, and people have been asking me about it, and I posted about it. We'll link to it. But the whole thing is that I have a workflow that is add to the book notes, and it also runs on Apple Watch. And so when I'm running and there is a very, very important thing being said in the book, and I want to just keep a note of it right now, I just stop. I talk to my watch. It uploads it appends it. Edits it, adds it to the Dropbox file where my show notes are, the book notes are. Sorry. This way, I can even actually take note at any moment when I run or when I travel. And this is really useful because some of the books that I've been reading don't require that. Just after the session, as you said, just after the session, I just put some notes in and it's fine. But sometimes there's a chapter of just very lots of wisdom nuggets, and you just want to put them in as soon as possible. And this is why I do that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been playing with this app called Automator. Now, this is a funny thing because
So it's like a
Automator,
workflow, but for the Mac, right?
yeah, it's like workflow, but for the Mac. It's funny because when workflow appeared on the scene a couple of years ago, people described it as Automator, but for iOS. But the thing is, even though Automator was part of Mac OS since maybe the beginning, I don't know, for like 10 years probably. Like,
it's been ever since.
For as long as I can remember.
Exactly.
Yeah. I haven't really used it much. Like I used it a couple of times for some very specific things, but like I didn't really figure out how to use it in an efficient way. And I still haven't quite figured out how to do it like in an easy way, like without touching any Apple script or any like boring stuff. Like it's not as easy to do it, and it doesn't as powerfully, like nicely integrate with other parts of the system, with share sheets and etc. as workflow does. But still, I've been creating those small workflows using Automator. For example, I have a workflow for recording the podcast, which opens Nozbe, marks a couple of tasks, the recording checklist, the intro text, a couple of other things, marks it as priority, goes to priority, changes the filter in priority to only filter from the podcast projects, opens QuickTime, opens two windows in QuickTime for my main mic and the other mic, opens the System Preferences app so I can like verify that the gain level looks good. And I haven't added it yet, but it could open the Zoom meeting, which, we have like this ID that when you open the Zoom video conferencing app, like this is our room for recording, right? So it just like does most of the setup in a semi-automatic way.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I have post-recording, so I can more easily copy files that I just recorded to two different places, to Dropbox and to like place where I kind of keep my copies. And then publishing workflow for, again, copying the files to the right places in preparation for publishing. I have a workflow a couple of workflows for kind of web development tools, like opens the web inspector for the app that's in Simulator, which is useful when developing Nozbe. And I have a little workflow for, again, like that just opens two Finder folders for like more easily, like semi-automatically copying some stuff after my weekly review, right? And now here's the cool thing. I use Alfred on my Mac, which replaces Spotlight. So if I press Command Space, I can press 3 letters to match an app name and then launch it, right? So I gave all of my workflows like a very like short specific name. I put them, like I saved them as applications in this one folder called workflows. And I configured Alfred so that it searches that folder.
Right.
So I just press Command Space. I start typing a few letters from, after recording or podcast recording, just like 3 letters or whatever, press return, and it just does the thing.
Pretty neat.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah. So as you can see, we are right now really achieving highs of automation right now. I mean, we're really like Radek got so motivated after getting the iPad Pro that right now his MacBook Pro is being totally automated.
Yes.
I've been using Automator. I remember for the really stupid things, like for me, one of the stupid things was back then when I was still coding things for Nozbe and doing things for Nozbe, like and also for when I was a consultant, I remember, and I got the Mac. For example, when people wanted to have, or even for private purposes. When people wanted to have photos in some kind of resolution, right? So this way,
exactly.
This was really great.
That's what I used it.
Yeah, this was really great because you would just, this folder with these photos, shrink them to this size. It's all done. You know, you don't have to go like a dumb person, open them in an image processing app, save as, shrink, whatever. This would be just crazy. So and also for the web, if you would want to publish things on the web, you would just shrink the things. And so for me, Automator was very good for that, for these kind of batch, processes, batch things.
Yeah, I also have kind of two experimental workflows. So sometimes I sit on my Mac and there's a bunch of sticky notifications in the top right corner. The worst ones are from calendar, and like I still like I might just change it completely so that it's no longer a problem, so that this problem doesn't appear. Like I'm still not sure if it's actually a good thing that calendar reminders are sticky, so that unless you just press close, they just stick there. So I'll get back to that, maybe figure it out. But I found a small like Apple script. I put it in a workflow, and again, it's accessible from Alfred. So I just do command space, start typing clear notifications, and it just like kills all of the notifications on the screen, like simple things like that. Or I noticed that there's a bunch of websites that I visit frequently from Safari, but they're not like homepage of some website, so that like if you open Safari, you start typing like GitHub and it will like autocomplete, but it's like some specific page so that you can't easily use Safari autocomplete. I also added it to Alfred so that I can do 5 keystrokes, starting typing some name, and again it just opens a link in Safari. So that's quite useful. And also so we started discussing it before the show, but that might have been cut. But I have some repeating tasks that have a checklist in Nozbe, and those are some things that can't be completely automated. So I just want to like semi-automate them, so that I have to make do a few kind of manual taps and presses and whatever, but just I want those to put me in the right spot. So we should probably write it up as a kind of pro tip for geeks using Nozbe, and maybe Rafa will publish something like that. But essentially, like instead of just having a checklist that says do X, I would use Markdown to make the do X a link that will just open the right thing. So there's on iOS, there's a lot of apps that you can open using a specially formatted URL scheme. So instead of HTTP something, you can do notes // and you will open the Notes app, right? And most apps on iOS have that, and sometimes can do like very specific things, like open the exact note or something like that. And if you Google it, you can usually find it, like figure it out, like what's the link to open this app or do this thing in this app. So I can like put it in this link in the checklist. So there's a checklist that I have to go through, but I just tap it and it like starts doing like pointing me in the right direction, and then I have to make something, right? And it's super great on iPad because you can have split view, and you can have just Nozbe in this tiny strip of the screen with the checklist, and then the rest of the screen will be the app that you're doing part of the flow with, right? Or you can even make Nozbe a floating window above,
which is really cool.
The checklist. Yeah, which is really cool, and then it also then works with apps that don't support a split view yet. And then like I briefly mentioned it before, but there's a kind of geeky hack that I added so that you can open websites in Nozbe instead of Safari View, which will open it above Nozbe, it will open in Safari. So if you're doing side by side, filling out a checklist, that's pretty great. And I don't have an example of that yet in my checklists, but you can copy a URL, with URL schemes to start a specific workflow in the workflow app. So you could have something that's like semi-automated with workflow, but then you have some other points to check off, right? But then again, like you could start from Nozbe, and in the checklist, you just tap the link in the near the checkbox. It would open workflow, start doing stuff, and then redirect you back to Nozbe so that you can continue with your checklist.
Cool.
It's pretty powerful.
How do you figure out the because you said that, for example, you figured out the Zoom, because, for example, we use Zoom. So there is a pro tip for people who use Zoom, or for teams that use Zoom. We use Zoom a lot. We use Zoom for our webinars, and we use Zoom for our meetings. And this meeting, actually, this podcast recording is a Zoom meeting. And we finally figured out to create dedicated Zoom rooms or Zoom sessions for our repeating meetings, because before that we would just, like idiots, I would have to start a Zoom meeting. I would have to paste the Zoom meeting to your iMessage, and you would open it, and then you would join it. And now,
and it's super frustrating because it will open Safari. Safari will ask you if you want to open it in Zoom. You say okay, but it just keeps the tab in Safari, and you have to close it later.
Exactly, So now we can just join the Zoom meetings directly. And the cool thing is that what we also did is, you figured out the Zoom's URL scheme, and now we have a workflow. And we have a workflow where we have the list of our meetings, and then you can choose which meeting you want to join, depending, when you are, like the Scrum meeting. Then now they also has the dedicated ID and all the others. So you tap on the meeting, and it opens directly Zoom and this meeting. And so it's really, really good.
Yeah, and super cool, because I don't know if you noticed it, but in workflow, when you in the app, you have this option that we use in that workflow that opens like a menu with options, and so it will give you the list of meetings you can open. But they actually implemented that interface in the widget.
Yeah.
So if you put it in the widget and you keep the widget like expanded, then you can just swipe left on the lock screen, tap it. It will show you the list like with these tiny rows that are barely but still tappable. You tap it, unlocks, opens Zoom at the right spot. This is perfect.
Yeah, this is what I did just today when I had our directors meeting. I just I took the iPhone out and it was logged in, in a second. And before that, I would have to go somewhere to Slack or somewhere else to find the meeting number, or like figure out things. It was crazy. So if you use Zoom, set up Zoom meetings for meetings that are repeating. That's the first thing. And second thing, figure out maybe to make a workflow of all the list of the meetings that you have to attend. And we can provide you with the URL scheme.
Yeah, we'll put in the link. We'll put in the show notes the URL scheme for opening a Zoom session, because that is not documented. It's only because I was very motivated did I figure it out. It was not.
How did you figure it out?
Okay, so you can do this. Like you can open Zoom meetings via the link that opens in Safari, right? So if you open the link, which is easy to figure out, like you can copy and paste it. But then it will try to launch using the URL scheme to redirect you to the app. But here's the problem. It has a different URL scheme on the Mac and a different one on iOS.
So okay. So you pretended that the browser was an iOS browser.
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
I opened it in Chrome because like the opening in URL scheme, this is like an attempt to redirect. This is how it's implemented. And if you try to go to Web Inspector in Safari, it will like clear after a redirect, right? But so I opened it in Chrome. In Chrome Web Inspector, you can like log redirects. And then in development settings, I put it to pretend to be an iPhone. And I copied the link and I replaced the ID, and it works.
Okay, so we'll post both the URL scheme for the Mac and for the iPhone, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is useful. Anyway, these kind of things are useful because if you have regular meetings, it's good to have like a dedicated space for them. And for us, like for a remote company, like to have dedicated, Zoom meetings for, special meetings. It's just, and it offloads the stress of somebody, being late. I mean, or me being late always. Is that the room is already available. People can jump in and just start discussion. Don't have to wait for you.
Yeah, you don't have to have a person that starts a meeting. Like everyone just joins at the right time.
Yeah, in Zoom there's this tick when you create a meeting that you can say that people can join without the host. So this way they can join using their own Zoom IDs without the host being present even. So in theory, we could just create a Zoom meeting for all the podcast listeners and they could join us here. No, but we could do that.
No. Yeah, but that sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Live podcasting, nah.
Yeah, this would be chaos podcasting.
Twice a year that we do it is enough. All right. Do you want to talk about my workflow that replaced an idea I had to make a custom app?
Okay. So you pitched me an idea to create a custom app because you're so frustrated that you need the custom app, and otherwise your world will break because you're simplifying things. You don't want to have any notebooks and everything like that. But you created a workflow that replaced your custom app. Anyway, before we start, just think about it. I mean, the workflow app, once you get hang of it, it's just so freaking powerful. I mean, no wonder Vitice is just writing all the time about it because it's just amazing. And this gives me hope that these guys who sold the workflow app to Apple, they will really do something amazing in Apple because for iOS 12. I hope so because, I mean, imagine your experienced iPad only without the workflow app. It would be just totally different,
It would be very different, yeah.
So really, the workflow app, I mean, really, it's just, we cannot appreciate it enough. I mean, I was being iPad only for a long time without the workflow app, and I managed very often, just crunching my teeth by having to do something and tap things, several times and everything. But now that I don't have to do it anymore, and I have these workflows, these beautiful workflows, it's just crazy, and it works very well.
All right. So the super short version of the story is I had a problem that I wanted to solve with an app. And it was a very simple but very specific app. And it would probably take me like 2 weekends, like probably like 10 or 15 hours to make a simple prototype of that. And instead I implemented a prototype of that, which does things like 95% of exactly what I want by stringing together two different apps with the workflow app. And I implemented this quote unquote app in about 1 hour using workflow on my iPhone. That was my development machine for this app. Because I didn't, at that point, I didn't have workflow set up on my iPad. It didn't sync, or I don't remember. Maybe I didn't have iPad with me at the time, but I did it all on the iPhone. So here's the problem that I was trying to solve. I don't remember if I mentioned it on the show or not, but I used to have this habit, or I have this habit of planning the next day in advance. Like when it's the afternoon, when I finish work, I plan the next day. And that's super important to me. Not the plan necessarily, but the act of planning itself. It really helps in kind of making sense of what are the most important things for tomorrow. And I kind of, mentally plan things out. And then when I wake up the next day and I'm in the worst position to make good decisions, instead of going with the simplest thing, it's like much easier to actually, follow the plan, because like you've already pre-decided on what's a good idea to do this morning and onward, right? And so the way I would do it is I would have these kind of book style calendars, like with an empty page for every day. And I would just like write things out on paper. And I just did it for years, like, I don't know, like 5 or 7 years. Like for a long time, I've had this habit, this system based around paper. I've had this habit since, long before I had an iPhone, and it worked well. And there is something compelling, there's something nice about the physicality of paper. So I kept doing that, and I just that was a habit. I never questioned, because, it was supposed to serve a purpose, and I didn't question that I can keep the habit but change the system in which I do it. And also the advantage of the paper was that it was always on the desk, right? So I could always look at it. It wasn't somewhere with 1,000 other apps. But here's the problem. There's a lot of problems, actually. First of all, one problem is I will often forget to do it, and then I couldn't do it, right? If I'm away from home, I can't plan the next day, and I can't see the plan for today or the next day. If I'm traveling, I won't bring that with me, because it's just another thing, right? And it's 300, 400 grams. It's a big thing. I won't bring it with me. So when I'm traveling, I'm a bit of a mess of a human being, because I don't have this fundamental habit that helps me stay sane and, follow my routine. And then, I was just in this whole groove for simplifying things and getting rid of all of the paper. So I figured, okay, this is finally time to make this digital, create a system that allows me to plan the next day and see today's plan, but in a completely digital way. And the obvious place where this should be is on the iPhone, because the iPhone I always have with me, no matter if I'm at home, away from home, during travel, I always have it with me. So I would have it always with me, and then it could always provide me with notifications hey, why not kind of turn around this whole thing with notifications and badges. We discussed how notification, push notifications and badges on apps just, create compulsive behaviors in me, because I have to react. Well, let's turn it to my advantage and, push those notifications to remind me of that, and have this badge just, annoying me until I tick this off. So the idea for the app was that, again, it reminds me in the morning to look at the plan, and it would keep the badge, and it would keep reminding me until I do it. And in the evening, it would remind me to plan the next day. And the app would be just 2 tabs, today, tomorrow, and you can put a bunch of things that have checkboxes next to them, so you can check it off. But again, it would be too difficult to actually implement a custom app like that. Even though it's super simple, it's still it's not non-trivial. I would have to probably learn a few things, fix some bugs, just stupid stuff. So here's what I did. I already have this app Productive, which I think I mentioned 2 episodes ago or 3 episodes ago, which is good at reminding you of habits and tracking them. So Productive does exactly what I need in terms of reminding, sending the notification saying, hey, plan the next day, and it will keep the badge on until I actually do it. And since I already have some other habits that I track in there, and I have reminded me of it, I already look at this app many times a day. So I already have a system to remind me to do it. And now I need some place to put the plan. I could just use the Notes app, but there's a couple of problems with that. First of all, I use Notes for a bunch of other stuff, for book notes and whatever. So I would have to pretty much every time I would open it, I would have to go back to probably go to some other folder, find the right note, or create a new note. If I'm creating a new note, I have to make a name for it with the name of the current date or whatever. Have to put the first checkbox so I can start typing it in. It's just annoying, right? I don't want to have it in Notes. I would have it in a different app so that it just has this, so that I don't have this whole mess of things, especially that those day plans, they're transient, they're just for me today and tomorrow. I don't care about the archive, right? So I downloaded this app called Bear, which is simple enough. But still, what would annoy me is it doesn't have state restoration. So I would open it, and sometimes it would have the today's node or tomorrow's node, or sometimes it would just have the list of things and I have to select the right one. Again, if I'm creating the plan for tomorrow, I have to type in the name and I have to scroll to find the checkbox tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I did. I figured out that I can string together those two apps using workflow. So I have the workflow app on the home screen, and if I do 3D touch on it, it will show me like in this tiny widget the two actions, plan today and plan tomorrow. And if I do plan today, it will take the today's date and it will format it as, this July, blah, 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 2017, right? Or August, whatever. And it then redirects to Bear for that particular node. So it will search for a node with that name, with today's date. And then, so that part is simpler. And when I open the plan tomorrow workflow, it goes to Bear trying to find a node with the title of tomorrow's date. And usually it won't find it. So we'll go back to workflow and then workflow will create this node with tomorrow's date as a title. So that then it's searchable when tomorrow becomes today. And it will begin this node with a template that starts with a dash that Bear will interpret as, hey, let's just put a checkbox in there. And once I have the first checkbox, I can just, bring up the keyboard, start typing, and when I press return, it will just make another checkboxes. So I don't have to find the tool. Like it just you do 3D touch, plan tomorrow, it does bum back to Bear, and it has like everything that just has to be there, and I can start typing. And when I'm done with that, I press the top left corner, which has the link back to workflow. And when I go back to workflow then redirects to the productive app so that I can just check off plan tomorrow, and that's it.
Okay, so it seems that using putting together like a few apps or just workflow and a Bear app works. So really, after you've done the inputting things in Bear, what you do is you tap back to workflow and then it continues and finishes the workflow, right?
Yeah. So in workflow, if you have an action that redirects you to some app, and with productive, like it doesn't have a workflow integration. I just like figured out that if you do like productive : / URL scheme, it will just open productive, right? But if you put two of these next to each other, after it redirects, like it can't redirect to the next one. So it will wait until you return to workflow.
Okay.
So if you press back, or if you double tap the home button to get back to workflow, it will continue. And then probably after some time it just times out. So if you never like finish that workflow, it will just go back to the workflow home screen.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And especially I think what we discussed is that this way you actually use the Bear Notes app just for that one purpose. So you don't use it for any other note-taking purposes. Yeah.
So that just helps because I hear that Bear is just a pretty cool note-taking app, but I don't need it. Notes works fine for me. It's just I want a separate place so that it doesn't interfere with other things I do in Notes, right? So that it just like makes this very particular, simple, but like super concrete problem go away, right? And also like it's cool that in workflow you can add workflows to home screen, but it's kind of a hack that just it creates this fake website that just redirects to workflow. So I first tried doing that, like add 2 items to home screen, plan today, plan tomorrow, but then the whole workflow would take like a second or half a second, probably a second longer, because you would have to do multiple redirects to actually reach my app. And so it's faster. Like if you have something that you really want to have super fast, it's better to put it in the first four position in the widget, and then put the workflow app on the home screen, so that if you have iPhone 6s or newer, you can 3D touch to open this more quickly.
Okay. What I realized is that, for example, when I have my journaling workflows, one of them requires reading data from Dropbox, and when I launch it from the home screen, from the widget screen, it would just go to the workflow app, but it would be just too late, so it wouldn't read the information properly. And there is a step in workflow which says go to the workflow app first. So I use that.
Interesting.
So to go from the widget to workflow app first, and then it just runs the whole workflow. I'm just hoping that people won't doze off at our geeky episodes. I mean, these two are really geeky with the workflows and everything. So the thing is, we're so excited about it because we're both, I'm kind of a programmer and you are a programmer. So we like building things and building programs, and workflow is kind of the scripting language that helps you do that. But I think what we really like about it is the fact that you can automate many things that before used to take you time. And, this is the future where things automatically and magically or automagically happen. And things link together and apps link together, and we will be talking about more of that in the future at some point. But now I think in the next episodes we'll try to get back to maybe some other ideas and books and things like that. So not to tire everyone too much, but really I think it's just useful that for people to understand that for us this kind of mindset helps us. It makes also our work fun, but on the other hand, makes our work less tedious. So we can really, again, focus on deep work, on things that are really, that we really should be focusing on, and not waste our, brain cycles, brain cycles for things that are just copy paste and things like that. So
yeah, and so there's two aspects for that. Like sometimes you can measurably save time by doing this. So I made some changes, some simplifications in the setup for recording, and the biggest part of that is the fact that I got this microphone boom that you, Michael, see, but others can't see, that I have on my desk, so that I can just swing the microphone to the place and I can start recording. And before I would go to a different spot in the room, I would have to set up the computer and whatever, and I have these three simplifying workflows that I did, and all of that stuff, preparing for it, buying the right stuff, setting it up, took me actually probably 2 or 3 hours. That's a lot, right? But I'm saving 15 minutes on every episode, and we record 50 of them a year, so that's about 12 or 13 hours in a year that's saved. So the investment will pay off quickly. And with automating things with workflow, it's usually like that sometimes it will take you a surprising amount of time, but most of it it's actually worth it. Over the long term, the investment will pay off. But then the other thing is what you mentioned, that even if if it saved you just a couple of taps, it just makes it less tedious. There's the cognitive burden is smaller.
Yeah, and it reduces the barrier of entry. So you are less likely to procrastinate on a task which is almost entirely automated. Because we tend to, I have to do this and send this to this other guy. It will take me 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Let's do it later, and you just procrastinate. But in the moment that it's just a few taps and you just link two things together, then it's just let's do it now, and you're done. So it's a lot faster and easier.
Yeah, and speaking of reducing the barrier of entry, I think we should put all of the interesting workflows that we've made that could be useful to other people in the show notes.
Yes.
So I'll definitely put my my day planning, the 2-day planning workflows in the show notes, and we'll also put the other pro tips with Nozbe checklists and whatnot, and a link to TestFlight so that you sign up to TestFlight if you run iOS 11.